So with the upgrade cards, I'm not going to read like old upgrade cards that have already existed in the game for a while, like concussion missiles or cluster missiles. I'll just kind of read the upgrade card and then move on. But for new upgrade cards, I will spend the time talking about them. It's just that I don't want to spend a bunch of time talking on the old upgrade cards because there's really no purpose in doing that. I will say a couple words about them, but just not a whole lot. So let's get started. So the first upgrade card we have is Feedback Ping. This card mainly works around bombs. So after enemy ship executes a maneuver, if it is at range 0 to 1 of a friendly device, you may acquire a lock on that ship, ignoring range restrictions, which is an EPT talent for only TIE fighters, well, ships only with TIE. So the V-Wing could potentially use this, but you also have to have a reload on your action bar. So the current ships that can use this are the TIE Bomber and the TIE SE Bomber, only because those are the pilots with EPT talents. The TIE Punisher currently does not have an EPT talent pilot, but this is a really good upgrade. So drop a bomb, and then if an enemy ship executes a maneuver next to it, meaning like proximity mines or proton bombs or anything really, right before that bomb goes off, if it's a move on to a detonate bomb, all your ships with this upgrade are going to be able to acquire target lock on that ship, even if they're beyond range 3. That's really good. That'll really set up proton torpedo strikes 100%. That kind of inspires the TIE Bomber from the Imperials faction to go back to using torpedoes. And for the SE Bombers, it's another entry strategy. And the nice thing about this card, too, is it's only 1 point. So it's literally nothing to add on. It's literally the points needed for a higher initiative pilot with EPT, and then just throw this card on them. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Now, I do think that this is a card better for during gameplay, not at the beginning. Like, when you're first jousting your opponent's list, this card will definitely not help you getting target locks to use against your opponent. It'll only work if you can be able to launch a bomb out there. But it works when you just drop a bomb randomly, say in like round 5 or 6, and then they execute a maneuver next to it, and then you get a target lock on it for free. So yeah, it's definitely a really cool card, and will really work good on the bombers, particularly the Imperial Bomber, but the SE Bomber will use it really well too. So yeah, it's a cool card. Alright, next up we have the Ion Limiter Override EPT talent. Now this is an upgrade card we've seen before. After you fully execute a maneuver, you may perform a barrel roll action, even while stressed. If you do, roll an attack die. On a hit result, gain 1 strain token, and on a crit result, gain 1 Ion token. Now this is a pretty good card. This is only for TIEs, but the V-Wing can of course use this. And this also works really well on Breach. If you do a 3-second result maneuver through an enemy, you get a target lock, use Pattern Analyzer to do a focus. This card will then let you do a barrel roll, just because you just can perform a barrel roll action. It doesn't like take away from your like perform action step. It just adds a barrel roll. So that's pretty cool. And you potentially get a strainer ion, but the SE Bomber already only has like 1 through 3 straight blue maneuvers, so an ion won't really hurt it, and a strain won't really hurt it either unless you're getting shot that round. So a pretty good card for Breach, and in general a cool EPT. This EPT is only 2 points, so that's pretty cheaply inexpensive for a cool upgrade on Breach. And next up we have Compassion, a light side force upgrade that is new to this expansion that Kylo Ren cannot unfortunately use anymore. It's 1 point, and it is before another friendly ship at range 0 to 2 would be dealt a face-up pilot or crew damage card. You may spend 1 force. If you do, that damage card is discarded instead, and you are dealt 1 face-down damage card. Then, if you have 2 or more damage cards, recover 2 force. This is not a bad upgrade at all. I feel like this goes really well with Rey, mainly because she doesn't really have any good force upgrades currently for her. She wants to use her force to modify her dice, not to really use other abilities. And though this may seem like a bad idea, it could actually be really good for Rey in certain situations. For example, let's say she has a couple damage. Poe Dameron next to her takes a crit with a pilot, so Rey decides to discard it. She takes the damage instead. And now that she has 3 damage cards, she recovers 2 force tokens. So she basically, by spending a force, recovers. She goes from 1 force to 2 force. So she basically recovers a force token, keeps Poe Dameron alive, or Poe Dameron from taking a really bad crit for him, say like Panicked Pilot. And so yeah, so she avoids Poe from taking the damage, she gets back 2 force, and all for her just taking the damage. And Poe doesn't even take the damage at all, which is really cool. So for 1 point, great upgrade on Rey. Not really sure if this is a good upgrade on really any other pilot in the game, mainly because all other force upgrade pilots either don't have 2 force or don't really want to take extra damage. This may be a good upgrade on Kanan Jarrus, but I think putting Maul with hate on Kanan is a better idea anyways, so if you have Ezra in the list. So yeah, this is a good upgrade for Ray, but I'm not sure if it's going to be good for really anyone else, so we'll see. Of course, we have the exact opposite of Compassion in this expansion as well, named Malice. While you perform an attack, you may spend one force to change one eyeball or hit result to a critical result. If you do, after you perform that attack, if the defender was dealt one or more face-up pilot or crew damage cards, recover 2 force. So this upgrade pairs really well for Kylo Ren. He can spend a force to change an eyeball or a hit result if you just have a bunch of hits, which can chain really well with his ability because the subsequent hits can also be dealt as face-up damage cards by Kylo spending more and more force. And it doesn't really matter which critical or damage card does the pilot, just as long as there is a pilot card. So like 3 hits goes into a Y-Wing, for example, from Kylo. As long as one of those is a pilot card, Kylo's then going to recover 2 force tokens. So he basically gives you a bunch of crits, and if one of those is a pilot, he recovers 2 force, which is going to be really good on Kylo. It'll also be really good on other force upgrade pilots as well, particularly Darth Vader, who now finally has another force upgrade to use. That can be absolutely nasty, giving him more force back for giving out crits. That'll be too nasty. But yeah, I definitely think it'll be an interesting upgrade. This upgrade currently costs 6 points, mainly because only Kylo and Darth are the best pilots with it, so they're absolute beasts with it as well. So that's pretty good that it costs 6 points. But yeah, it's a cool upgrade, and I definitely think we'll see it being played. And for our last force upgrade, a neutral force upgrade for any factions, we have Scattering Shot. While you perform an attack, if the attack is obstructed by an obstacle or the defender is at range 0 of an obstacle, you may spend 1 force to add 1 eyeball result. For 3 points, this is definitely not a bad ability. If you have a lot of force tokens, like say Kylo Ren or Darth Vader, yet again, this is another upgrade that can be used on Darth Vader. You can really add a lot of hits to your rolls. So like you spend 1 force token since they already have 3 to add the eyeball, and then you spend your focus token, which maybe changes a couple of other eyeballs that you already rolled with your attack into hits. So that's going to be really strong because it basically just completely counters the extra defense die that the opponent gets. So it's like Trick Shot, but with Kylo Ren particularly, this can work really well. He can shoot through an obstacle, spend a force to add an eyeball, and then if you have his EPT slot filled in with Trick Shot, he's rolling an extra attack die. So if he gets a bullseye on a defender with Trick Shot and Scattershot combined, he might be able to get 5 hits, and the defender only gets 1 extra defense die. So they go from, so Kylo gets like 2 hits added to his roll basically, whereas the defender only gets 1 defense die. And this works for the AA2 Jedi Interceptors as well. So it's fun to see Kylo and the AA2 Interceptors have like a little Blackout ability. Obviously, they need a bullseye fire arc in order to pull it off really well. Otherwise, it's just going to be 2 attack dice for their main primary added with the Trick Shot and Scattering Shot 2 hits. So, yeah, that's a really cool combination with Trick Shot. On its own, I think it's a pretty good card too. But yeah, definitely not without Trick Shot is it going to be, I think, played. I think we'll only see it with Trick Shot on the AA2 and Kylo Ren fighters, just because that's really the only situation in which this card is really useful. Otherwise, it's cool, it's just not the best, so yeah. Next, we have the old Advanced Optics card, which is basically a recurring card in most tech upgrade ships. And Prime Thruster is another recurring tech upgrade, which is actually kind of useful in a Whisper if you put Pattern Analyzer on the Whisper as well. Because if you do a 3 Segner's Loop maneuver with the Whisper, you can then do a barrel roll with Pattern Analyzer. Your action step is still technically there because Pattern only grants an extra action, so the stress token blocks that extra action, but Prime Thrusters lets you do the boost regardless of that stress token. So you can do a barrel roll and a boost with a silencer off a 3 Segner's Loop maneuver if you use both Prime Thrusters and Pattern Analyzer as your tech upgrade options. And we finally have the new tech upgrade, Sensor Scramblers. Setup, gain 1 cloak token. While you are cloaked, other ships cannot acquire locks on you. During the end phase, if you are cloaked and there is an enemy ship at range 0 to 3, you must decloak. If you do and that decloak fails, lose 1 cloak token. And this is an upgrade only TIE Whispers or TIE VN Silencers can use, so only the, I guess, most elite ships in the First Order can. Now, it is a pretty interesting upgrade. It basically prevents you from being torpedoed volleyed in the first couple of rounds, and it gives you a slight boost reposition when you choose a decloak, so it's not super bad, but the thing is, it's going to go away once you start engaging the enemy, so it's like, it keeps you alive for a round, and gives you a slight boost / barrel roll, but it's not terribly great. Thankfully, it's only 1 point, so for 1 point, it's actually really good. If you have no other tech upgrade options you want to try out, for 1 point, this is great. So yeah, I think we'll see a lot of play with it just because, you know, the Whispers already have the enhanced jamming suit and there's no real other tech upgrade that's an auto include on them yet. So this upgrade I think we'll be seeing a lot on them, and maybe on the silencers as well. If they're not using prime thrusters, it'll be probably auto include. So yeah, not the best upgrade, but because it's only 1 point, it's made really good. So that's great that it's only 1 point. Next we have ion torpedoes, cluster missiles, the easier to use RAS pilot ability, homing missiles, and proton rockets, which actually might be really good on Breach, because if he has the focus target lock, he can then use a bullseye firearm for 5 attack dice. Now, you have 1 copy of all these upgrades in the expansion, and these are all really old, so I'm not going to cover them because, yeah, most of people know about them anyways, so. And, of course, we have the Electro chaff missiles, which is a new upgrade. This not only takes up a missile slot, but also the device slot as well. So, during the system phase, you may spend 1 charge from this card to launch 1 Electro chaff cloud using the 3-bank template or 4 forward template, then place 1 fuser marker on it. This card's charge cannot be recovered, and it only has 1 charge, so you can only use it once. Because it is a device, you can place an additional charge on it with delayed fuses, and the Electro chaff missiles, what they do are that they are basically an obstacle. So during the end phase, remove each Electro chaff cloud with no fuse markers, then remove 1 fuse marker from each Electro chaff cloud. So fuse markers make these things last longer, and they're not just a random obstacle that doesn't do anything. They actually have a few features. 1, while a ship at range 0 of an Electro chaff cloud, it cannot be locked, jammed, or coordinated by other ships. After a ship moves through overlaps an Electro chaff cloud, it skips its perform action step. Then it gains 1 jam token and breaks all locks on it. While a ship defends, if the attack is obstructed by an Electro chaff cloud, it rolls 1 additional defense die. So basically, it's an obstacle that the player can launch, but unlike a debris cloud, it's more like jam tokening. So, like, if you move on to it, you're not going to be able to do an action, and then you immediately become jammed, but you break all your target locks. So, this can both be good for you and your opponent, or bad for you and bad for your opponent. For example, let's say that you're flying a TIE bomber that wants a target lock on someone. If you do acquire a lock on them and then they fly through your Electro chaff cloud that you launched, they break the lock on you, even though they get jammed and skip their action, which isn't really that big of a deal. Skipping their action and getting a jam is not really that big of a deal. If it was just get a jam, it would be the same thing, because you're not, without performing your action, you're not really going to do anything. So adding a jam to that's kind of a little bit silly to me. It really only works with the Whispers because, you know, you can just launch one of those and then have a friendly ship go through it, and then that ship is now jammed, so the Whisper, because that friendly ship is jammed, it's now going to be in the firing arcs that the Whisper is in as well, so the Whisper is going to have an extra defense die. That's really the only case I can see where you'd want to both lose your action and get a jam token, but otherwise it's just kind of silly and pointless in my opinion. But being at range 0, though, you cannot be locked, nor jammed, nor coordinated. That's interesting. So if you like launch it and your opponent's squad is really big on coordinating their friendlies, they can't be anymore. Jamming, yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to be really at range 1 trying to jam them, though, anyways. But not being able to be target locked is another interesting thing. The fact that you can't then torpedo them while they're on that is cool. But additionally, this is a cool obstacle for Blackout. It adds another obstacle to the table for him to use, so this will work really well with bombers playing with Blackout. But I believe the bombers should not be using upgrades like proton torpedoes because they'll most likely not have the target locks they need in order to launch that ordnance. So they simply just have to be straight up bombs with this card and Blackout. So yeah, it is an interesting upgrade card though for sure. It's only 4 points, so for only 4 points that's really good. It does kind of defeat the SE Bomber's purpose of being a torpedo carrier. Same with the Imperial TIE Bomber, which can also use this card. But if you just kind of have them be just bombers with no torpedoes and put this card on them as well, it gives them a dual feature. Like, not only are they jamming their opponents, but now they're dropping bombs as well. So it's pretty decent. And this token is fairly wide. Just we're showing it right here with the other ship bases. As you can see, it's really wide. So yeah, definitely people are going to hit it, or Blackout can use it super easily to shoot through it to chain his ability. So yeah, with Blackout it's going to be really good, and it's going to be pretty hard to hit. So pretty hard to miss, sorry. It's easy to hit, hard to miss. So yeah, it's a pretty wide token. The next upgrade we have is Concussion Bombs. Now these are relatively still kind of new. They're kind of old but kind of new at the same time. So during the system phase, if any of this card's charges are inactive, you must spend 1 charge to drop 1 Concussion Bomb if able. Otherwise, you may spend 1 charge to drop 1 Concussion Bomb. So 3 charges After you drop your first bomb, if you don't immediately reload, you're probably just going to have to drop the rest of your bombs, which can be a hindrance or can be good. What the bomb does is when this device detonates, each ship or remote at range 0 to 1 is dealt 1 face-down damage card. Then, each ship at range 0 to 1 must choose to either expose 1 damage card or gain 1 strain token. So, bomb can be really good. Does a face-down damage card, so it goes straight through the shields, and then either they have to expose that card or take a strain. So if you can shoot them, they're going to have 1 less defense die. So if you do have an arc on them, then they kind of have to make a decision of less defense or exposing the damage card. But if you can't shoot them, then they're almost always going to get the strain token. It's a pretty good bomb, just because like you can lay up some pretty good minefields when you ionize your opponent, which for the SCs can work by using ion torpedoes, I guess. But for Y-Wings, you know, ion cannon. It's a pretty good bomb, though, in general. Did really well. Cool to see it that the First Order is getting its expansion. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. Our first new gunner upgrade for the First Order, which is interesting because we only have the Special Forces gunner so far, so it's nice to see new gunner options, is DT-79B. At the start of the engagement phase, you may choose a friendly ship in your firing arc. If you do, that ship gains 1 strain token. While you perform an attack, you may reroll up to 1 die for each ship in the attack arc with 1 or more non-lock red or orange tokens. So that's really good. Obviously, the strain token that you give to a friendly ship fuels this ability. So if you have 1 friendly ship stressed, another one strained, and the enemy ship that you're shooting at, and an enemy ship next to that ship, you get up to 4 rerolls. So I know a lot of people are asking, like, why is this card good? Well, it's good for 2 reasons. One, with your own proton torpedo, all you need is a target lock, and now he just rerolls for you the rest of the game. So you don't need to like constantly have a focus and a target lock combination. You can just keep the target lock on the same ship until it blows up, and just constantly just need to do focus and just have ships in your arc, you know, with red tokens. So one is to keep your torpedo locked on the same ship for multiple rounds. And the second reason is for targeting synchronizer. We all know the problem with targeting synchronizer has been that even though it gives all your ships the ability to launch torpedoes at the single ship that one guy has target locked, they either are going to have focus tokens but no target locks for rerolls. So they're only going to be hoping if they roll a blank, it's basically game over with targeting synchronizer. It doesn't really work to help that out. But this gunner pretty much counters that, because if you have 1 bomber with targeting synchronizer that's coordinated from a shuttle, now he has focus and target lock, and the other bomber has just a focus token. But with this card, he'll be able to reroll a bunch of dice from the shuttle's stress token, the other bomber's strain token, and say a First Order TIE Interceptor's strain token, as well as the enemy ship strain tokens for 4 rerolls. So it's basically his own target lock. So not only does it fuel targeting synchronizer lists, but also just not having to spin your target lock, ever to reroll on an enemy. So it's a pretty good gunner. I think list building options for him right now are kind of clouded. It's like not really sure what you should do with him. But I do think that in the future we'll see him being played a lot more competitively as well. And currently he is 5 points in the game. So not that expensive at all for what you're getting, and not that cheap either. So definitely a good upgrade. I definitely think he'll be more popular as the game goes on. But currently I think some people are struggling to try to fit him in whatever list, just seeing like how he works best. And our second new First Order gunner is the First Order Ordinance Tech. He has no abilities, he just simply adds reload to target lock to your action bar, and both those actions are white. The reload's a white, and the linked to a target lock is white as well. So that's really good. So basically the problem with a lot of bombers in the game right now is that once they reload, they have to take another round to do target lock. So it takes them about 2 rounds to get the reload and then the target lock, and then a 3rd round to come around to do the focus. So it's like a 3-round setup, but this guy shortens it down to just a 2-round setup. Like, pull away from the engagement for 1 round to reload target lock, then pull in with a hard turn and focus. So really strong for sure. The fact that the SE bombers will be coming back for more twice as sooner is really fun, and the fact that these guys only cost 3 points makes that really good. So I definitely think it'll be a really cool upgrade if you have the extra 3 points for it and you already have engine upgrade on your bombers, or if you just want this upgrade instead of the engine upgrade. So yeah, definitely a really good option, and this can be put on Special Forces TIE Fighters to allow Special Forces TIE Fighters to reload their missiles. The only deal with that, though, is that the missile plus this gunner is like the same as a Special Forces TIE Fighter, Special Forces Gunner, which is pretty much the best thing for the Special Forces TIE Fighter. Like, if you can have a Special Forces Gunner, you don't really want a missile. So That's kind of the only unfortunate thing with this combination between him and the Special Forces Gunner, is that it's just not cheaper than the Special Forces Gunner, but with the SE Bombers, this Ordinance Tech is definitely a really, really strong upgrade and will be really widely used. He might go up in price to like 5 or 4 points, but I think it'll be a while before he does, and he may never as well. He may just stay at 3 points, so that's really cool. Just like Unlimited Override, Suppressive Gunner is a relatively new upgrade. So while you perform an attack, you may spin 1 eyeballs up. If you do, the defender gains 1 deplete token unless it chooses to suffer 1 damage. This is a pretty cool card, mainly just because it gives your torpedo carriers extra mod without having them to use a coordinating shuttle or other types of cards or whatever. Personally, I think that the SE Bombers have many other ways to get focused target locks. This isn't really a necessary card for them. And since this card is 7 points, they much more prefer the Ordnance Tech card. But this is a cool upgrade for Scorch, mainly because Scorch's ability lets himself give out strain tokens. If you just want him to do it, or you can have friendly ships do it. But basically, Scorch with Suppressive Gunner, you could be giving out a strain and a deplete, or a strain and a damage, or... So you're basically just going to be messing with your opponents if you put this upgrade on Scorch and just have that. And this on Scorch is 42 points, which is really cheap for a pilot that's doing all that stuff. And you can still throw on bombs and engine upgrade on Scorch too. So if you be a bomber that doesn't use ordnance, but instead just messes with your opponent every time he shoots. So that could be really good. That's really the only thing I'm going to see him with on the SC Bomber. I just don't think that the SC Bomber really lacks mod for its torpedoes. It has many ways to do that, which we'll see in the next series of videos where I cover all that with the SC Bombers. But yeah, overall though, it's still a pretty good upgrade, and I'm glad they included it in the expansion. But yeah, I definitely think that even though it's really good, it's just like, I think the 3-point Ordnance Tech is just going to be better. Another upgrade we've had for a while is delayed fuses. After you drop, launch, or place a bomb or mine, you may place 1 fuse marker on the device. Basically, the fuse marker will go away instead of the bomb, so if you put that on proximity mines, if a ship runs over proximity mines, then just the token will be removed instead of proxy going off. And the same with like end of activation detonate bombs, like proton bombs. Those detonate at the end of the activation phase. If they have a fuse marker, they'll not detonate at the end of the activation phase, and so they'll just remove the fuse marker. So it's like makes your bombs last another round longer, or if a friendly ship's going to go over a bomb, like a proximity mine, you can put that on there to make sure the friendly ship doesn't explode when it hits the proximity mine. So it's a decent upgrade. Glad they included it in the expansion because it'll be good for the SE Bombers, and yeah, that's pretty cool. And this upgrade currently is 1 point. And finally, the final upgrade is engine upgrade. Probably a relief to many players that they don't have to go and buy an expansion from, like, say, Resistance or First Order. No, not First Order, for Scum, in order to get engine upgrades to use on their SE Bombers. So that's really cool. It's cool to see this upgrade in the expansion. I do think that engine upgrade for the SE Bombers is going to be where engine upgrade we see play from now on. And it's glad to see that this expansion comes with that, because this is a hugely good card on the SE Bombers. It's 3 points for the SE Bombers and other small ships, 4 for medium-based ships, and 7 for large ships. So it's a cheap to expensive card, depending on how you price it. But yeah, it's cool to see it in the expansion. And this expansion, of course, comes with the quick build cards, but I'm not going to cover these because not really that many people use quick build cards, and also because the quick build options for these ships are kind of somewhat terrible, to be honest. But yeah, that is the Fury of First Order Squadron pack for Star Wars X-Wing. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I personally think this expansion is pretty good. It may not have extra copies of, say, Plasma or Proton Torpedoes, the cards we want to put on the SE Bombers for Ordnance, as well as the bombs, of course. It only comes with Concussion bombs. But you can easily get all the bombs from the Fully Loaded Devices pack. And as for torpedoes, I don't know, I guess you just may have to pick up other expansions or whatever, which is kind of unfortunate, but you can easily pick up a conversion kit from the First Order to get all your proton torpedoes, advanced proton torpedoes, and other missiles you might want to use. I do think the SE Bomber is going to be really highly played. Like I said, there's just so much you can do with the ship. The fact that it boosts before it drops a bomb, the gunner options, the First Order Ordnance, and the DT-9-7B, as well as all the, just the proton torpedoes, the focused target lock strategies you can use with it. So the next few videos that I make, like I think the next 3 after I'm going to make a video with Breach and the most overpowered X-Wing list I came up with. It's going to kind of just explain how to use Breach, what you can do with him, all the upgrades you can put on him, and then put him in a list idea and explain that, and that list is going to be super overpowered. That's the next video I want to do because that is a really good list. But after that, I'm going to do like several videos on how to do the First Order SE bombers, like one video on their bombs, another video on their ordnance, and then another video kind of combining both those ideas into some lists. So yeah, that'll be that. The Whisper, unlike the SE bomber, isn't really a big splash for the First Order. It doesn't really offer anything new in terms of ordnance or just new stuff to do that the SE bomber adds to the First Order. It's just kind of a reprint of the Special Forces TIE Fighter that can jam ships now, which is definitely interesting, but yeah, I'm just not sure, honestly. An extra defense die is great, and most of the pilots in that ship either just fly around giving out a bunch of jam tokens like Nightfall, or have a bunch of mod to make those 3 defense dice really good, such as Whirlwind and Kylo Ren. So I think Whirlwind, Kylo Ren, Nightfall will be really cool, and we'll see them played a lot, but I just think that overall, the Whisper definitely was kind of a letdown, whereas the Bomber was a really good ship for the First Order to get. So yeah, but if you want me to do a video in the future saying on how you should fly the Whisper, or how I think you should fly the Whisper, or just some good list ideas, let me know in the comments. I will be doing the SE bombers, but the Whisper I'm not going to do unless a couple of you guys comment that you want to see that. So comment if you want to see that. And yeah, like I said before, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Definitely a great expansion. It'll definitely change gameplay for the First Order. It gives them to the torpedo strategy, which is really the only thing their faction is missing, and they really were at a lack because of that. So now, not only can they just do aces, but they can also do ordnance carriers. And we're going to see in the next bomber videos that the TIE bombers themselves, without a shuttle, can actually get a focus and target lock torpedo strike, so they can work in tandem with aces, just kind of on their own. So that's going to be a really scary thought. So definitely, and if you're interested to see how that works, definitely check out the next few videos coming from this channel. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. May the Force be with you, and good luck.